Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you had a great weekend. If you'd like to follow along, we'll be in the book of Galatians, chapter number 4. And once again, I have bitten off more than I can chew. We'll be going from verse 21 down to verse 31, which is the natural division of this passage, but it is way too much to cover in 5 or 6 minutes. But hang on tight. Like, share, comment on the post, and then let's jump in. Not going to read it all, but again, Paul is still continuing to stress here the difference in being free and being a legalist, someone under the law. Someone who is trying to earn their way into heaven. And he uses an illustration here that would have been familiar to most of the people, and even still today. And he talks about it by talking about Abraham's two sons and their mothers. Again, remember, he is teaching here that the way we become acceptable, the way we become part of God's family is not by works, but by the promise of God. And so he's going to use these two women, these two sons, to do that. I'm going to again I'm going to really summarizing a lot here. But remember, Abraham had two sons. One was a son that had been promised to God through his wife Sarah. And if you remember the story, Sarah, many years went by after that promise without them having a child. And it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. Well, she got discouraged, and so she sent one of her servants to Abraham, and she got pregnant and had a son. She sent Hagar to Abraham, and Abraham gets her pregnant, and Ishmael is born. Then later, after that event, God keeps his promise, and Sarah does become pregnant, and way past the age where she should have become pregnant, and she has a son who is named Isaac. Now, the point that Paul is making here is contrasting these two sons. Ishmael was the son of Hagar. It says here, one by a slave woman in verse 22, one by a free woman. Here's the things about Ishmael to remember. Ishmael he was just a product of nature. That's what happens when a man and a woman get together. That's just what happens. Because he was born to a slave, his mother was a slave, he immediately was born as a slave himself. They were immediately, he was born into that life. He is obviously a product of works. Sarah planned this out, sent Hagar. It was a product of work. Now, let's look at Isaac. Isaac was born to Sarah, a free woman, it says. Twice here in verse 22, verse 23, both times it says twice there that he was born of a free woman, born to Sarah. So he was born free. He was not born because of the work or the effort of Sarah or Abraham or anyone else. He was born strictly because of the promise of God, that God had promised that Sarah would bear a son. Abraham and Sarah both were past the age of childbearing, and when Isaac was born, and so Isaac was born because he was fulfilling a promise. So Ishmael, being the result of human effort, of works, is born into slavery. Isaac, being a child of promise, was born into freedom. And he's using that to illustrate this difference between trying to earn your way into salvation and having salvation be the gift of God, being the result of a promise. And so, again, that is what he is stressing to us, that you can't, again, he's using this to teach us and to remind us you can't work your way into freedom. You can't work your way into promise. Isaac was born into promise. It was a gift that was placed in Sarah and Abraham's life. It was a gift that was given. Ishmael was, again, a product of works. And look what he says in verse 30, what the scripture say, cast out the slave woman and her son, for the slave woman shall not inherit with the son of the free woman. So, brothers, we are not children of the slave, but of the free woman. He says we're not born by works. We're not part of the family of God. You don't get into the family of God by human effort, by human work, like Ishmael. Ishmael wasn't going to be born into that family. He wasn't going to be entitled to the same things that Isaac was, because he was a result of works. Isaac, on the other hand, was a result of promise. And that's what we have in salvation. We have the promise of salvation. We have the promise of freedom. We don't work ourselves into being heirs, joint heirs with Christ. We are given that. That is a free gift of God through Jesus Christ. We can't possibly work our way into that family, into that position as an heir. We have to be granted that as a free gift of God. And so today there's two ways I think for us to take this passage and to digest it. One of them is if you're trying to earn your way, work your way into the family of God by memorizing Scripture or going to church or not cussing or not telling dirty jokes or giving to the offering, whatever, doing some job in the church. Paul reminds us here, you can't work your way into the family. Getting into the family of God is the result of a promise. It is a free gift. And then for those of you who are listening, which is probably the majority today, we can rejoice. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to work my way into the family, and I don't have to work to stay in the family. I am part of the family of God because He gave me that gift and brought me in to be His son, to be a joint heir with Jesus Christ. It is the free gift of God, and we can rejoice in that today. Keep that in mind. You have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.